Hello and welcome to Charch Chat as we recap the divisional series from a fantasy football perspective, specifically with the NFC. Did the AFC earlier this week. We're going to do the NFC now, and it gives us an opportunity to dive deep into the playoffs, and specifically for these four teams that were remaining coming into the weekend. Only two left now. Let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. Anquan Boldin did not play. He had the hamstring injury. In his place, Steve Bresson filled in. And this could be a snapshot of what we're going to see next year. Remember, Anquan Boldin, unrestricted free agent. Very good chance the team's not going to be able to lock up, $50 million in the wide receiver position. So, could very well be that Boldin ends up leaving and Bresson would probably be the starter. He didn't do a lot, 40 yards. Not a big contributor in this game. But then again, they didn't really need him. They're up early. We've seen enough of Bresson, 100,000-yard season. Nice season. Not nearly the playmaker that Anquan Boldin is, obviously, at this stage, and he's also a special teams guy, but he did not do a lot. Kurt Warner, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also, unrestricted free agent. He will be back. It's all but certain with his great playoff run that he's experiencing right now that the Cardinals simply have to bring him back. And no matter how good Matt Leinart may be looking in practice, imagine the disaster if you let Warner go and Leinart doesn't play up to or near his level. Man, it would just kill this organization. They finally got a fan base that's rallying around them. They sold out the championship home game in 6 minutes. And if you let Warner go and he has success elsewhere or Leinart's not ready, man, it would be a bad scene. I believe he will come back. Larry Fitzgerald, though, is the story of this game. Another giant game, 166 yards and a touchdown. And just the way that he attacks the ball and the way that he times jumps, unbelievable. And now you look over his last 4 games, 101 yards, 130 yards, 101 yards, 166 yards. A great late season surge. He'd been really good all season long, but really great lately. Touchdowns in every one of the last 4 games. He is football's best wide receiver. He's fantasy football's best wide receiver. And if you caught one of my earlier Charch chats, you saw that I have him ranked for next year in the first half of the first round. I like him that much. James and Hightower split carries and actually got 37 carries between them, which is astounding for this team. This is the bottom-ranked rush offense in the NFL, and they averaged 3.6 yards per carry, which isn't a lot, but by Cardinal standards is really good. Hightower scored again, so he scored in consecutive games. I still don't see a lot that I love here, and I'm not sure that either guy is going to be the solution for next season. In fact, I don't believe either guy will be the solution for next season, and it's possible neither guy will be on the roster next season for the Cardinals. Let's go to the Panthers. Jake Delhomme, clearly the story here, but I just want to start with DeAngelo Williams. Put up 63 yards in a lot of fantasy playoff drafts. DeAngelo Williams was the #1 player taken. And the 63 yards, no touchdowns, and bowing out after one game, colossally disappointing. But not as bad as Jake Delhomme, whose 6 turnovers put him in big negative numbers for a lot of scoring systems. If you're in a scoring system and this is pretty common, where you get 6 points for a touchdown pass and 3 for every interception, man, you're negative a lot. The rest of your squad has to overcome an enormous amount to make up for the 5 interceptions and the 1 fumble lost. Obviously, this is very disappointing. Comes up against the secondary in Arizona that allowed the most passing touchdowns in the NFL. He did throw 1 touchdown, but still, this is a very, very bad loss for Jake Delhomme. All but certain will return as a starter for the Panthers next season. Steve Smith scored a touchdown, the 1 touchdown. Finished the season with a touchdown and or a 100-yard game in 6 of his last 7 games of the year. So he really finished well. And Steve Smith reminded me of why he should remain in the top 5 for wide receivers for next season. And even with Jake Delhomme, and people will be very down on Jake Delhomme and feel like Steve Smith's great, but Delhomme can't pass. Let's remember, 1,400 yards from Steve Smith, and he didn't play the first 2 games of the year. So he's a very good player, and I believe will be underrated coming into next year. Jonathan Stewart only had 3 carries, 1 of them a touchdown, and this is what worries me about DeAngelo Williams next year is what is the role of Jonathan Stewart going to be, and I worry that it's going to be near the stripe. There's going to be a lot of lost touchdowns for DeAngelo Williams to Jonathan Stewart, and even if Williams gets the majority of the carries, I'm still worried about the role that Stewart's going to play, and we saw it here in this game, touchdown out of Stewart, and so we'll find out. But this is it is something that does concern me. Philadelphia Eagles, Donovan McNabb ran into touchdown. His mobility's been a godsend for him. Now, he's not the McNabb mobility-wise that he was prior to the knee and ankle injuries over the last 5 years, but still has the strength and ability to get around that. He's defeated some really good pass rushers like Jared Allen and Justin Tuck so far in the playoffs. I mean, he's had a murderer's row of defensive lines to face, and he's been up to the challenge. And we've seen him shrug off sackers and get out of difficult situations in the pocket. I'm really impressed with his running ability, and the rushing touchdown's a nice reward for fantasy owners. Brian Westbrook shut out on the ground for consecutive playoff games, and unlike the Vikings, the Giants were able to contain him through the air as well, so he did not put up meaningful numbers here whatsoever. Still remains one of fantasy football's best players, though. The wide receivers, I mean, it's so hard to get a read on any of these wide receivers because none of them really stand out. Deshaun Jackson's probably going to be a very good pro, but I'm not sure that he ever gets out of the slot. I don't know that he ever becomes a really great fantasy provider, especially if he's in the slot for the rest of his career. We'll find out, but none of these guys stand out at all. McNabb completed multiple touchdown passes to 7 different guys. None of them really stood out. Your leading receiver through the playoffs for the Eagles, Brent Selleck. Tells you plenty. David Akers had a nice game, 11 points in most scoring systems, and he has now made 18 straight playoff field goals. That is a clutch kicker for you right there, David Akers. Let's go to the Giants. No touchdowns scored, which is unfortunate. Eli Manning with a bad game, not the lone bad, but it was bad, and he just looked lost. He never seemed to hit his stride, never seemed to get comfortable, never seemed to have any confidence in this game. Jim Johnson, defensive coordinator for the Eagles, really had him flummoxed throughout the day. I think his struggles in the late season makes it pretty evident that they're going to have to welcome back Plaxico Burress next season. And as much as we like the notion of the Giants making a stand against a bad character guy, I think they're going to have to take him back. And, I'll be surprised if they make such a stand that they don't welcome him back next year. I'm assuming he's not in jail. They'll have to take him back. Brandon Jacobs, 92 yards rushing on 19 carries. He averaged 4.8 yards per carry, which is very nice. And I think they should have used him a little more, actually, in a game that was not out of reach for most of the game. And I think there should have been a little more concerted effort to just pound him away. I can understand keeping him healthy throughout the season so he's ready for the playoffs. You can really use him a lot in the playoffs. I didn't think the Giants used him nearly enough. Derek Ward got some extra carries, just 70 total yards, and didn't do a lot in this game. Kevin Boss, we should note, was the leading receiver by both catches and yards and had a really nice second half of the season and should probably roll into next season. Somewhere ranked around number 6-ish on your tight end list. Pretty good for a young guy, but really liked his second half of the season performance after he started so quietly through the first 7 games. So there you go, a fairly comprehensive breakdown of the NFC here at Charch Chat at Open Sports. Thanks for joining us. If you have any questions for our fantasy staff, send an email to fantasy@opensports.com.
Think you can complete the drive? Play today and get an automatic entry to win daily prizes, 2 tickets to the big game, and a brand new car. Start your drive today at opensports.com.